Hi, Isabelle.
Hello.
You're here, but you're here also in the form of a sculpture and in the form of another sculpture over there. How does it feel to look at your own body?
To be honest, it's pretty intense. It's always a little shocking, a little terrifying. When we first came in the gallery, I said to Lauren, let's turn her around. And you know, I often am a little afraid at first and then become less so. I'm really interested in art so much like you often are the active looker and the passive one being looked at. And here, I like the ambiguity. I'm both looking and being looked at once.
So how important is it to be in your own work and to create a presence somehow, being your own muse? Well, was it always like that, or was it an evolution?
No, so these two works are part of a series called Orgy for 10 People in One Body. And the one body, it's almost like a musical note, and I'm using my own body the whole time, but just for this series. So each one of these, it's very important. It's a different aspect of desire, a different aspect of sexuality. Each one is in a different material. So there's like, in this case, it's very important. It's my own body. There's a porosity between me and the material that I'm interested in. And yeah, it's about that here. Looking at the body, as terrifying as it may be, and to kind of lift that terror and make it more about ecstasy and possible pleasure and acceptance. And this is taking time. This is the 10th sculpture that I've been working on for the last 3 years. The first one with a head. And it feels very different than when I first started, you know, looking. Because before that, there had been a kind of erasure of self, especially the body. And now it's come into full focus for me.
I think that's very interesting because I looked at the other works, and exactly what I thought is very obvious, that the head is missing, that basically you reduced your own individuality.
Yes.
And now, yeah, was it planned that in the end there is this head? Is it a process of suddenly being more confident with your own appearance, or?
Well, I kind of see this one as headless too.
Okay.
So because of the way her hair is, it covers the face, and I did a lot of drawings with these blurry kind of charcoal on the face. I'm really interested in this place that's, there's ecstasy, pain, and loss of self. And so the anonymous quality of the no head is something I'm looking at. So that they're self-portraits, but in a way they're self-portraits of a plural self.
I was wondering, is she suffering? Is she tied up, or is it something that she's maybe enjoying? She's not forcefully in, but because she chose to be in that position?
That's exactly the questions I'm hoping you ask when you see it, so it makes me happy. The rope is, you know, it's kind of unknowable. Is this pleasure or is this pain? Because of the kind of rope, it's speaking to Shibaru, like it's a kind of, and it's erotic bondage. It suggests a kind of sexual play, right? But we don't know. Like, is she in pain? Maybe. Is she on the verge of death? Is she pointing to something that just happened, to something that's about to happen? This is the question, this ambiguity between what could be happening. Is the rope consensual or not consensual? I'm so glad you don't have the answer. I don't either. She knows, but we don't know. Maybe she knows, maybe she doesn't. Do we know? Even the wedding ring, which is another,
exactly. I wanted to point out on that, because that's very interesting, because it's representative. It's like a representation of something, a higher order, a societal order somehow.
Exactly. I mean, it's love, right? Mm-hmm. But it's also, is it also a bondage? Is it also, how much of these things do we know are consensual or not? Again, because of this larger, the way the bee's making the wax, are we also part of a larger kind of system? And how do we push against it? When do we know what is us and what is not? And that's a lot of the reason I'm using my own body too, to go back to the other question, is trying to figure out what is my desire outside of
convention.
Exactly. I think so often we think, like, you know, there's a very specific hierarchy: man, animal, plant. not interested in this hierarchy, subject, object. No, I really want to kind of change it into a relationship between two subjects. That's something I've been trying to do. And the subjects of nature, like the tree and the bees are just as important here as the human body and just as porous. I feel like we so often, there's like a forced alienation between the human body and everything around it, between our two bodies. It's crazy just being here. Yeah. That's not real. I mean, that's not how it feels. So trying to speak to that, the way that we all belong to each other in a way, humans and the materials around us and the nature around us, and to ourselves. So when I first begin all the works, I do what I call a drawing phase, but the drawing I draw with my body. So it's a lot of self-portraiture. I set up a camera, I set up a lot of dance. I set up like a kind of area for movement, and this is where the sculpture comes. And this is sometimes like a year of this. Wow. Until you find kind of something that's a metaphor. In fact, this sculpture hit the metaphor when I was looking at these pictures of Stefano Maderno's Saint Cecilia. She was a saint from the 200s. They found her in 1600. They say her body was incorruptible. She was in the exact same position that she had died in. And I'm really interested, obviously these are 10 positions, right? So there's sex positions, death positions, but also just sculpture, the whole thing is the position in space, the power position, who's looking, who's making. So to think of this woman suspended for 1600 years under this church in Rome, I don't know if this is true. This is what they say. They found her exactly the same. And she too had a scarf over her head. So there was it was all about the body, this incorruptible body. And she was supposedly a virgin. She was the saint of music. I think of these really musically. The title comes, Orgy for 10 people in one body is like music for 18 musicians, piano trio in E flat. And it's about how the materials kind of work together like music. I did performance for many years before this. So yeah, that's how it come to the body.